In the great words of Ferris Bueller, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around every once in a while, you could miss it. You might miss Rashad Amos being committed to your program for all of 5 seconds before he goes elsewhere because he's already been committed to Mississippi State. And then he went to Deion Sanders in Colorado. And now he's back in the Magnolia State, but he's playing for Ole Miss. At least that's what we expect. The ink is not dried, and we're not entirely sure that this is a done deal. But what exactly does Amos bring to the backfield for the Rebels in 2024? Is this a move that will make Amos a household name in the SEC? And is this finally the last piece that will send Ole Miss to the national championship conversation? Let's go ahead and discuss SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit subscribe, and the ring notification. That way you don't miss a single episode of SECU because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1. Make sure that you download the podcast version of the show, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Leave a 1-star review if you hate this, but we know you don't. And leave a 5-star review if you love this because we know you do. Make sure that you also download all the socials at SEC Unfiltered. We're on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And for the #1 content surrounding your favorite conference, make sure that you visit secunfiltered.com. RHOBACK.com, use the promo code SECU for 20% off your very first purchase on all joggers, shorts, hoodies, and much, much more. Make sure you go use the promo code SECU at RHOBACK.com. So Rashad Amos' story has just been a complete and total cluster mess, which truly identifies why there needs to be relegation in the transfer portal. Guy was a phenomenal running back at Miami of Ohio, initially commits to play for Jeff Levy, then realizes, well, I'm not on campus just yet, so I can go wherever I see fit. I'm going to go commit to Colorado. And Colorado comes out and they say, well, it's a good start. You feel positive about where we are, but at the same time, maybe there's a little bit of trepidation here. So I'm going to go play for Ole Miss. You know what Ole Miss's transfer portal reminds me a lot of this offseason? You ever see the movie The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler, where they have a roster that is absolutely dreadful, but slowly and surely they start adding in these little pieces and they get that highlight moment. I'll play, and then they pan up on the faces, and it's like, oh, that guy's coming on board. Well, now this guy's coming on board. Well, the prisoners, what are they? The cons, they're actually looking pretty decent. And then what happened? Well, they just beat up on the guards. And once they finally found a rhythm, they were actually able to beat up on the guards. Kind of the way with Ole Miss's transfer portal this offseason. It's like, oh, they added in Juice Wells. Oh, they added in Princely Umanlielen. Oh, they added in Henry Parrish Jr., Walter Nolan. Wow, now they're bringing in Rashad Amos? Where's the fault on this team? The good news is that when you look at Ole Miss, they knew that they were going to have to replace the production lost by Quinshon Judkins. A lot of people want to talk about this high-tempo passing attack with Jackson Dart and Trey Harris. Now you're bringing in Juice Wells. You still have Caden Prieskorn. You do realize that this was a run-oriented first offense last year. 53% of plays were on the ground compared to 47% through the air. And that does not mean that Jackson Dart's not going to be in contention for the Heisman Trophy because I do think they're going to ask him to throw more. But to make up for the lost production and keep that same persona of offense, well, we're just going to add in as many pieces as possible. We want to get a third down running back. Okay, let's go bring in Henry Parrish. He already knows the style of offense. We want to bring in a pass catching running back. Okay, Logan Diggs from LSU fits the criteria of what we're looking for. Well, we want to add in a change of pace player that could elevate our team when we maybe need to use more running backs. Okay, Rashad Amos, come on in. And so it's just wash, rinse, repeat, feeling good about the consistency of what this running back room could be going into 2024. And now there's really not any more questions. You want a pass-catching running back? You got a pass-catching running back. You want a bruiser that can go ahead and set the tone inside the red zone? You got a bruiser that can make up for that lost production by Quinshon. Now, every piece of the puzzle feels like it's there. Kind of like when you added in those last pieces, the Terry Crews, the Michael Irving, everyone who joined in with the cons in the longest yard. Then you felt like this was a team that was actually going to put up some numbers. And that's kind of the way that we feel about Ole Miss. We all kind of expect Ole Miss to be one of these great teams. FanDuel does. Vegas absolutely believes in them. They have the 4th best odds going into the year to win the conference title. And they also have the 8th best odds to win the national championship. Just go back a few years ago and remember when Elijah Moore lifted up his leg and Matt Luke was fired in the process because there was no identity, there was no culture, there was no sustainability. Well, because of that move, now Ole Miss has a coach that is buying into what he is preaching, Players are being sold not just with NIL, but with proven commodities. There's a proof of concept that when you transfer here, we are going to be better. And you also are starting to build a foundation and a standard set in Oxford. Everyone knows that right now, any regression with this roster, with the last dance mantra, is not going to be reciprocated by anybody. It's not going to be reciprocated by the fans, by the boosters, by the coaching staff. Nobody is going to internally say, we're okay with taking a step back. And the schedule bodes extremely well in Ole Miss's favor. They have one tricky game on the road against LSU. And more importantly, if that's a night game, that's one that you are definitely fearing with a little bit of concern, only because of, well, if this defense can't reach the quarterback, it's going to be a shootout once again. You also have to realize that both of your other games that are really tricky on the schedule, they're both in Oxford. You got Georgia coming on in, and you get Oklahoma coming on in. And if your defense is as good as you think it is, well, then it should hold its own against either one of those two teams. And then we're talking about potentially, well, now 11-1's on the schedule, 10-2's on the schedule. There's not really a glaring need anymore for Ole Miss. Just adding an Amos is another piece of the puzzle that just says, hey, we're doubling down and following the last dance mantra. We know that this is a year where we have everything in place to go on a run. And a lot of people are saying, well, Ole Miss, if they don't win the national championship, is it a lost season? Not really, because if you do see the fruits of your labor and the foundation laid across the middle, and everyone starts buying into, well, this is working down in Oxford, and they got the coach, and they have the personnel, and they have the clientele when it comes to the boosters and NIL being willing to support and back it up. That way they can continue to be in contention. Where's the fault? This is just the baseline moving forward. Yes, Ole Miss this year feels like it has to be a playoff team or bust because of where the roster is, but that does not mean that just because of if they don't win the national championship, they're not in a successful season. A lot of people define success with how many wins or losses or where your season ends. You making the college football playoff, you making it by adding in a Rashad Amos who could end up being a difference maker in 2 games that might end up being down to the wire, and you end up winning a couple of playoff games, that to me seems like a winning season. And again, with all these transfers coming on in, you want to know what it does? It's proof of concept that this is working for Lane Kiffin. Not only is he bringing in proper talent, high-end talent, but the right talent. The talent that is going to fortify this team and finally put them inside of legit national contention every single year. I think Rashad Amos coming on in is a bit of a wild card, only because of when is the relegation of the transfer portal finally going to be set? This is why we need a college football commissioner, because if any single day you can watch as one player goes in and then the next day he doesn't like the NIL deal that's offered to him, well, now he's going to go elsewhere. And then if he doesn't like that deal, well, he's going to go elsewhere and then elsewhere. And so there needs to be some limitation on how many times you are allowed to actually commit to a program. But in terms of play style, in terms of what he brings to this offense, in terms of who he is as a player, it's really hard not to like the situation that Amos is going to be in with this team alongside Ulysses Bentley, alongside Logan Diggs when he's fully healthy, alongside multiple other running backs that they already have brought in. They bring in the guy from, they bring in Henry Parrish. They also bring in the guy from New Mexico. So there's a lot of potential for this team to have a 5-headed phenom in their backfield where, yeah, you don't have Quinshon Judkins, but you still have the same identity and the same process. Overall, I don't like the pathway Amos took to get to Oxford, but you would be far-fetched to say that I am not enjoying what he will bring to this team in 2024. But let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think of Rashad Amos coming over to Oxford? Is it already too pedantic to where you're just waiting to actually see him strap it up before you say, oh, he's actually a Rebel? I would not blame you whatsoever. Make sure that also you like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you are following us on all of the social media channels at SEC Unfiltered. And to keep up with the #1 content surrounding the SEC every single day, make sure that you visit secunfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks, take it easy.